I'm here now with Dr. Iain Staffell, who is a lecturer in sustainable energy at the Centre for Environmental Policy at Imperial College in London. Thanks for joining us, Iain. It's great to have you, or great to be here.
You're welcome.
So firstly, can I ask, what does a sustainable future look like when it comes to energy?
So I think it needs to look and feel just the same as our current energy system. You want people to be familiar and comfortable with the way they interact with energy. But at the same time, it needs to look completely different in terms of how we do the things. So you'll still have electricity available at the flick of a switch. It'll be reliable, it'll be affordable. You'll still be able to drive your car to get places. You'll still have a comfortable and warm home. It's just the way that every part of this is done has to be different. So this could mean it's not a petrol or diesel car you're driving anymore, it's hydrogen or electric. Hopefully there'll be more provision for active transport, so it'll be easier to cycle and walk on short distances, and there'll be better trains and buses to help us replace the need for long distance driving or flying.
On that front, could you talk more about what energy we're using right now? Where is most of our demand found?
So at the moment we're very heavily dependent on fossil fuels. Most of the energy we use in the UK is coming from oil and gas. We only produce about 60% of the oil and gas that we consume, so we're also reliant on loads of other countries for importing it. The oil is obvious, we use that in all of our vehicles, and gas, we use it for heating our homes and offices and also for generating electricity. And so these are coming from places like Norway, the US, Algeria, Nigeria. There's a global supply chain moving fossil fuels around everywhere, and we just try and get them from wherever it's cheapest.
What is getting in the way of making change happen?
It needs to come in every part of the system. So the way we generate electricity in the UK, that has changed radically over the last 10 years. There's been a massive growth in renewable energy sources, and so we're only using half as much fossil fuels for power than we did 10 years ago. The change that we've had in transport and heat, you can almost not see it. We're doing exactly the same as we did 10 years ago. So that's where everything needs to change.
Are there any other countries that are doing it really well right now? For example, Iceland, I know, currently produces 100% of its energy through renewable sources. Is that realistic or idealistic?
No, I think that moving to 100% clean energy or renewable energy is very realistic. It just is going to take time, effort, and a bit of money. So there's places like Iceland, places like Costa Rica, who can run on 100% renewables. It's partly because they're really small, and also they've got brilliant resources for doing this. Look at larger countries, and it will take some more time because we've started from a position, the UK with its industrial revolution, we were highly dependent on coal, oil and gas. But I'd say the UK is also somewhere that people can look up to because we are cleaning up our energy system faster than any other country in the world at the moment. And I think that's critically important as we go into the COP conference of the climate change negotiations, which this year will be held in Glasgow, because we need to show really strong leadership and show other countries what is possible to do even as a reasonable size industrialised country.
There seems to be so many solutions out there, which is a bit confusing because we haven't seen loads of progress. So why is it that we've got all these solutions, but it's taking so long for us to get out of this predicament that we're in?
I know this is a huge problem, is that energy systems are incredibly slow to change. You've got the problem that it's one of the world's largest industries, trillions of dollars invested in the power stations, oil refineries, oil wells, etc. And you have to completely change from top to bottom all of these components. So it took, wind farms were being developed in the 1980s. It's taken 30 years for those to scale up to become a key part of many countries' energy systems. The same with solar. That started back in the Apollo missions and the first satellites that we launched into space, and it's taken 40 or 50 years. But there's many things we can do to speed that up. But I think the key problem is governments always want to make sure that the cost of energy is as low as possible. If you push up bills, it's going to be unpopular with people, it's going to push more people into poverty. We've reached the point now that we've built so much wind farms, so many solar farms, that we know how to do the manufacturing a lot better than ever before, and the costs of them are coming down. So if we keep working like this, get the cost of batteries lower so that electric vehicles are competitive against petrol cars, and then you can see these things take off. But I think the problem is both that the country scale and on the personal scale, it's often more expensive to do the right thing. Like if you think about travelling from London to Glasgow, why on earth is it cheaper to take a flight than it is to take a train? If we could do something like Germany has done, at the start of the year they cut the price of their long distance trains 10% on a climate basis because of them being cleaner to use. So if we could do things like that and make the right choice the cheaper choice, everyone will be happy.
Can I ask, how do you think that we should be reacting, people watching this at home, to what you're saying here? We've been talking about companies and governmental change. What can the individual do?
I mean, there's loads of things that individuals can do. One thing is, organisations like XR, the Fridays for Future and the school strikes, it's only through people power, putting pressure on governments through organisations like this, that everyone's actually talking about climate change. You look at the Davos Forum in Switzerland recently, climate change was front and centre throughout all of that. It's never been like that before. So one thing is political action, put pressure, make noise so that people pay attention. But then there's loads of personal choices that you can make as well to move yourself towards a cleaner lifestyle. So it's things like cutting back on driving if you can, for very short journeys, walk or cycle instead of taking the car. Try to cut back on flying, take the train if you want a holiday in Europe, or maybe to consider holidays in the UK. Lower your thermostat at home, take half a degree off the temperature of your house. You'll save 5% on your fuel bills and you'll be helping the environment. Eat less meat and dairy as well. If you change your diet, you can have a huge impact on the environment that way. So Imperial College, a group of us have put together a little infographic with sort of 9 things that you personally can do to help combat the climate emergency. So look around, find things like this and tell everyone you know what else you can do and what they can do to help.
And in what ways are our current policies impacting climate change?
So there are policies that are having a good effect and ones that are quite negative. So some of the good things we've seen, powering past coal. The UK and Canada have managed to rope together 80 countries and cities who have agreed to completely phase out coal. So there's a big success. We've put a price on carbon. Now around half of, no, not half, I'll go back to that bit. Putting a price on carbon. There's now lots of countries and states around the world which are pricing CO2 emissions to make it the cheaper thing is the better thing to do. But some things are going in the wrong direction. So we actually subsidise fossil fuels here in the UK and most other developed countries. I think it's something like £100 from each one of us is going to support fossil fuels. And you think, why on earth is that necessary? You pay VAT on a solar panel if you want to put one on your roof. You don't pay VAT on coal. That's something that could be so easily changed and would have a big impact. And the other thing that everybody forgets about in policy is efficiency. We used to have a really important flagship scheme, the Green Deal, that would help people insulate their homes and help to fund loft insulation, cavity wall insulation, and it got scrapped. So the rate at which people are insulating their homes has plummeted ever since. So things like this, you need to not cut the policies that are working well, even if it is going to cost a bit of money, because in the long term it will save you money through lower bills and help to save the planet as well.
There's lots of talk of greenwashing going on, especially when it comes to energy. What can we do to avoid it? What key things do we need to look out for?
Oh, it's very difficult. So everyone now wants to, every company wants to persuade you that they're also doing the right thing. And there's some companies that have announced really impressive targets. I mean, Microsoft recently, they're going to be zero carbon by 2030, and then they're going to have sucked up all of their historic emissions ever emitted by 2050. So that's well ahead of what any country or any government is willing to do. But then you've got others who, for example, switching from plastic cotton buds to paper-based ones. That is literally going to do nothing. It's a bit of small sort of twiddling around the edges. I know people are complaining about adverts saying a particular type of car is a self-charging hybrid. It makes you think it's an electric car, but really it's charging up through petrol. Norway has made those adverts illegal, for example, because they're misleading. So I think you have to keep your wits about you and always try and think, is this going to have a big, major impact on the environment, or is it just sort of window dressing, not really actually achieving anything?
Thank you so much for letting me come and chat to you, Dr. Iain Staffell. It's been fantastic. We will make sure that we keep any information on Dr. Iain Staffell and ways that you can work on some of the things we've been speaking about today on our comments for this video. So make sure you have a look for that, and let us know if you have anything that you want to contribute as well using the hashtag XRTV.